Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel for a Chelsea FC news video. It's been a few days now since, it's literally been less than 48 hours since we were beaten by Spurs. But because the games are coming so thick and fast, I've kind of been in like a match preview, 6 things we learnt, haze, and then before you know it, the next game kicks off. We've not really had that many opportunities to make a Chelsea FC news video. Today we've got one, and I'm probably going to be talking for the majority of the video about players that have either just left or that could be leaving in the next 5 days between now and the end of the transfer window. There might be a player exodus at Chelsea which could see Declan Rice come Chelsea's way. There are a lot of rumours right now about certain central midfielders potentially leaving the club over the course of the next few days, but before we get into any of that, I've decided that in the 1 year and 3 or 4 months of GBFC's existence, October 2020, I want to make it the biggest and the best month yet. So if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. We're building a big community here of people who we don't necessarily all have to think the same way, but the energy that we're trying to put out there within the Chelsea community is a good one. So if you're on board with that, I'm going to be making an entire video about this later today. So there will be a second upload today on GBFC. If you're on board with all of that, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on today's Chelsea FC news video. And we're going to start off by talking about Ross the Boss Barkley. The man who we didn't really think he was going anywhere. He was on the bench for the game against Spurs in the EFL Cup 4th round tie. Next thing, you wake up in the morning, we're still kind of nursing a sorry head after losing a penalty shootout against our biggest rivals. And you look on social media, you look online and you see Ross the Boss holding up an Aston Villa shirt. Ross Barkley secured a season-long loan move. There is no option to buy, apparently, within this loan for Aston Villa. First things first, very good signing for Aston Villa. Second thing, in my opinion, this is an interesting one for Chelsea because I see Ross Barkley as a very useful player within this Chelsea team. Yes, when I'm making videos and I'm building hype and I'm getting excited about teams, Ross is never really that guy that I put into like a game changer category. He's never the one that I really spend a lot of time discussing or talking about what he could be bringing to this Chelsea team. But Ross is a very good utility player. He was bought in from Everton, and I think Ross knew that it was a step up in his career. He was used to being one of the biggest names at Everton, obviously growing up on Merseyside, being an Everton fan and all that stuff. He was a big name at Everton, and he's come to Chelsea, and he kind of was like a small to medium-sized fish in a pretty big pond. Chelsea's a big club with high expectations. Now, obviously, we've got a squad full of players, and the midfield position is the one where we've definitely got the most. However, when I look at what Ross's contributions were pre-coronavirus, like the FA Cup game, the Everton game, and then towards the end of last season, I thought Ross was a very useful player, and I wasn't really seeing many rumours about him leaving other than maybe being sold to West Ham, or I think Newcastle were interested before the whole farcical takeover decided to fall through. Ross Barkley going on loan to Villa, it probably means that there's still opportunities for some other players that I'll be discussing in today's video that I might have necessarily thought could have been leaving. So that might change things ever so slightly now. It's a very good move for Aston Villa. They've made a good start to the season. They've currently got a 100% record. They've managed to keep hold of Jack Grealish as well. So it definitely boosts that Aston Villa team, and I think they're going to have a relatively good season. They should be safe, and Ross is a very good acquisition. Obviously, the way that Chelsea Football Club view Ross Barkley, with not including an option to buy, they still see the qualities and the ability that Ross Barkley has. We're not talking about a young player with potential. We're talking about a player who has had good moments throughout his career, but due to inconsistency, he's never really reached the heights that Chelsea would be expecting from a central midfielder to help us try and challenge for the title. So I want to wish Ross Barkley, that was a tough one to say, I want to wish him the best of luck, and hopefully we see him have a very successful season, playing as many minutes as possible within the Premier League, starting for Aston Villa, and then who knows, next season we might be looking at a Chelsea starter, or we might be looking at an inflated price to sell him to make way for another, hopefully, very successful transfer window next year. So Ross has gone out on loan. What does that mean for a man who Frank Lampard has even hinted might also be moving out on loan during this window? Of course, I'm talking about big RLC, Ruben Loftus Cheek, the man with all of the potential in the world, had an injury that we have absolutely discussed on this channel many times before in a stupid flipping friendly for brand awareness in the US during the middle of a flipping season or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly when, but it was frustrating. You know, Ruben Loftus Cheek, he played a big part in Maurizio Sarri's Europa League Chelsea winning team in the road to that final, and then he picks up that knock, he misses the rest of the season, misses pretty much the entire of last season as well, and what we've seen from him so far is a real struggle. You know, we know the quality of the player that's in there. We know the ability and the ceiling that this man has. We're not seeing it, and unfortunately, when you're playing for a club like Chelsea, it doesn't matter how lovely the story is about how Ruben grew up from the academy, how he scored his first goal many years ago when he was still a teenager. All of those things, they're all lovely stories and it's a lovely narrative, but lovely isn't really a word that we can keep using. If performances aren't good enough, Chelsea are a club that want to be competing for trophies, and if Ruben Loftus Cheek isn't at the level that we need him to be, I know it's a shame for the reasons probably why, but it is what it is. Life is life, and Ruben knows that this is a big season in his career. His growth has been stunted. He's obviously had a big sabbatical, not through choice, but through an injury. So we know that this season is very important. If Ruben is fit, he needs to be playing regular minutes. Unfortunately, at Chelsea, there isn't that time, and I think this is a key thing amongst the Chelsea fan base right now. It's not just players, it's managers, it's everything. Time is not something you get very easily at Chelsea, particularly in a position and in roles where there is a hell of a lot of competition. Ruben knows that at the moment, Mason Mount's ahead of him in the pecking order, Kovacic is ahead of him, Kante's ahead of him, Havertz is ahead of him already. So Ruben's minutes are certainly limited. So with Ross Barkley's departure, it obviously changes the balance of the pendulum a little bit in terms of whether Chelsea will sanction a loan move for Ruben. But in terms of his career, I think this is the biggest season of his career. I think this year, if he plays football and starts to build that confidence again, he keeps getting minutes under his belt, I think we could still see the quality player that we always knew was in there. Whether that's going to be at Chelsea or not, I hope that in the future it is. I don't think Chelsea will be looking to sell Ruben for one moment. I'm certain that we won't be, but maybe a loan move is important. We've also got to remember, with Ross going away, he was one of those players that we could call upon to play in various different positions across the midfield, and there's another player that might be leaving that we're about to talk about in a moment. If Chelsea do start getting rid of midfielders right now, and we don't manage to bring in a replacement, it could leave us, despite all of the quality we have, it could leave us short if we bring up injuries like we did last season. We already know there's numerous injuries right now that are hampering this Chelsea team from being as strong as they could be, and it could get worse throughout the season. So I'm very much on the fence right now regarding Ruben. I'd love to know what you guys have to say and what you think he should do in the comments down below. I'm very much on board with right now. His performances haven't been at the level that we expect in a Chelsea shirt. We definitely shouldn't sell him. We should definitely not flip and sell him. I'll repeat that as many times as I need to. Ruben on loan to a top Premier League club, or a Premier League club where we know he's going to start every game, could be the best thing for his career. And next season we could see him flourish in the blue of Chelsea Football Club. Now, a player that's always been debated amongst the Chelsea fans, debated within the footballing world, is the Italian maestro, J5, Jorginho. I've always been a man who can see what Jorginho does, can see how niche that he is. At this moment in time, I'm very much of the opinion that it doesn't fit the system of how Chelsea need to utilise all of the players they have available to the benefit of the team improving. I think Jorginho, the way that he plays, it's very slow. It definitely slows down the tempo of matches. He does have the ability to play a very good ball over the top, but more often than not, the sideways passing, it's not really the way that I see this Chelsea team being built. Jorginho's been linked with a move back to Italy. He's also been linked with a move to Paris Saint-Germain. If Jorginho leaves, I think it would be probably a good move for the future of Chelsea. However, I am very much aware again, and all of this video is like debate about who's more important. I would say that Ruben has more of a place in this Chelsea team than Jorginho. That's the biggest question that I want to ask you guys in the comments down below. If one player was to leave between now and the 5th of October, would it be Ruben or would it be Jorginho? I think we've seen Jorginho play quite a bit so far this season. When Hakim Ziyech comes back, I think the entire dynamic of how this Chelsea team lines up will change. N'Golo Kante's back fit. Kovacic has been quite inconsistent so far from what we've seen after he missed the opening game of the season. Chelsea are in a little bit of a sticky patch where we're not winning enough games and we're already 5 points adrift at the top of the Premier League. It isn't something that I want to necessarily worry about immediately because we have had so many key players injured. We got so many new players and it's taken a while for them to gel, which has to be expected this season. But Jorginho, I don't think, is that piece of the jigsaw that really makes all the difference. So if Jorginho was to leave, I'd wish him the best of luck. I'd thank him for everything he's done in a Chelsea shirt. But moving forward, the way this Chelsea team's being built, I think one of the key things right now with Frank, and a lot of people are very quick to call him out tactically, a lot of people are very quick to call me out saying,
you don't want to say a bad word about Frank because he's a top...
I've said this a million times. Frank Lampard is a Chelsea player, my hero. My favourite player in footballing history. Fact, in my humble opinion. As a manager, we know that he's still got naive traits. We know there are still things that he needs to develop. And the thing with this Chelsea team, with all of the injuries that we have, is it's near impossible for Frank to build a formation that we can see used week in, week out. And I think at the moment, until everybody is fit, until Frank has the full arsenal of players to choose from, I think we are still going to see inconsistencies. And I think it's got to be expected. But Jorginho, in terms of the vision that we know Frank has to play attractive, fast-paced football, Jorginho is not that guy. And I think if he was to leave, I think it would actually probably benefit Chelsea and Frank's decision making moving forward. He's a very good professional, he's a good leader on the pitch, but I don't think the style fits this Chelsea team. So to wrap up the video, of course, if these players are all going to leave, Ross is already gone, tick that one off. If Ruben leaves, Jorginho leaves, Chelsea will need to invest in a central midfielder. And we all know the man who has been linked and who Chelsea are supposedly interested in, Mr. Declan Rice from West Ham. If all of this goes through, Chelsea might be selling Bakayoko as well, so that's another piece of income that Chelsea would have for a player that we don't really see a future for at Chelsea Football Club. If all of this happens, Chelsea could make a very late and expensive bid for Declan Rice. It's something where Chelsea wouldn't really have time to allow West Ham to offer negotiations. We know that West Ham want 80 million. We might, if we're going to sign Declan Rice in this window, we're probably going to have to offer something close to that. And I think Chelsea will be reluctant to do that. However, if players are going to leave for their own choice because they want to leave, because they don't see their futures at the club, or because Chelsea are trying to free up funds in order to fund that Declan Rice move, there isn't a lot of time. There is currently 4 days, 5 days including today, until the transfer window closes. And if Chelsea want Declan Rice, they're going to have to move very quickly, offer West Ham what they want for the player. There's no doubt that Declan Rice wants the move. Chelsea can definitely afford his wages. And if we do offload more players between now and the end of the window, supposedly, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because I'm fed up of talking about the geezer after what I heard about his attitude in the game against West Brom. Marcos Alonso supposedly could be on his way out of Chelsea after he tried to go and sit on the flipping bus. I flipping hate that. Stuff like that, I just don't even want to address it, to be honest, because it's frustrating, it's unprofessional. Alonso's not been playing well enough to warrant that kind of attitude. So Alonso could be on his way out as well. Chelsea could be bringing in a lot more revenue between now and the end of the window. And maybe that Declan Rice move isn't so impossible after all. But anyway, this is going to wrap up today's Chelsea news video. The big question was Ruben or Jorginho. Which one do you think should leave if Chelsea are to offload one of them between now and the end of the window? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Hit the like button if you did enjoy today's video. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. George Benson. Links to those are in the description. I'll catch you later for another Chelsea video. I'm going to be discussing a topic that does definitely ruffle some feathers, and I'm going to address it in my way, and hopefully you guys can join me for that. I'll see you all later. Come on, you Blues.